Well, I will say Mohammed is an excellent coach to the point where it's sometimes frustrating because there are challenges that I come across, and oftentimes I just want to leverage his expertise. I know he's been down this road, I know he's experienced this at many different levels, and I just want to kind of soak that up like a sponge and be like, tell me what to do. And he never gives in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy O'Rourke.
And I'm Elizabeth Swan.
And we are from GoldingSixSigma.com. And you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast, where we wrestle with tough questions, talk to thought leaders, discuss great books with authors, and get insights from Lean Six Sigma practitioners.
We let you in on helpful apps, we bring you the news, and we challenge the status quo so you can build your problem-solving muscles.
Okay, Elizabeth, is there something on the menu for everyone today?
There is, Tracy. I'm tempted to say there's no fat, but I like fat, so that doesn't work for me. What does work is today's interview. For today's special, we've got a first. We've got Senior Sensei Mohammed Saleh and Lean Sensei Heather Pershala, both from Hartford Healthcare, and they're discussing their mentoring relationship. So stay tuned for that. For Survey Says, we'll reveal our 8 waste poll results of the most prevalent waste, so stay tuned for the reveal. In the news, it's the OPEX Summer Business Transformation Leaders Summit and this fall's Association for Manufacturing Excellence, that's AME, their international conference in Chicago. And you and I are going to both of these, which is exciting, right, Tracy?
Absolutely.
And for Q&A, we'll answer a forum question about how to conduct a waste walk in a virtual environment. It's a great day at the cafe, Tracy.
Yes, it is. I'm really looking forward to this menu that we're going to be talking about, especially the mentoring interview. Love that.
Yeah.
Remember to stay tuned for this month's coupon code in order to get a discount on GoLean6Sigma.com online training.
Let's get to the poll.
So we found out which of the 8 wastes got the most votes, didn't we?
We did, Tracy, although getting the most votes is bad in this case,
right.
Since we're talking about waste. And we recently hosted a webinar about waste walks, and we decided to ask our listeners about their experience. And the question was, what do you find to be the most prevalent of the 8 wastes? And as a reminder, we use the acronym downtime. So the 8 wastes are defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and extra processing. There's a Pareto chart posted on the site so you can see the results, but here they are. Transportation, inventory, and motion came in at the bottom, 3%, 4%, 5% respectively. Overproduction and defects next in line at 10% and 15%. Extra processing came in third at 19%. Non-utilized talent is second at 21%. And the number one waste at 25% was waiting. Tracy, you had to wait to hear me say that.
I did. That was a lot of waiting.
A lot of waiting. Since I assume waiting, I kind of assumed that waiting was number one. So it's not a surprise since it's often the result of many of the other of the 8 wastes. The surprise to me was non-utilized talent coming in at number 2. But if I think about it, it makes sense because if you let people solve problems, you can remove a lot of waste. You know, the whole point of creating a culture of problem solvers is giving them the power, utilizing their talent to spot and get rid of waste. So what did you think of the poll results?
So since most of my work is in transactional process, I'm not at all surprised at waiting being number 1 and extra processing being at the top 2. We are really good at adding steps to processes. We are not very good at removing unnecessary steps. We talk about it all the time in trainings and when we're on site with clients. But really, number 2 made me sad. Underutilized talent is number 2. What does that mean? Does that mean that leaders are still challenged with unleashing the potential of their employees? Sadly, I think so. I'm speculating now, but if this is so, this is in line with some of our other polls that we've done in the past where people felt like they weren't getting leadership support, they weren't being mentored, they didn't have a coach, and those leaders were getting some dismal results, unfortunately. So that makes me a little sad. I'm totally speculating though, but I want to believe that there's something around that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're making a good point that we've heard it from different avenues, that people are not being able to, unleash what they truly can do for an organization. And that's on leaders. And I think a lot of our upcoming webinars are focused on leaders and how they can do better by their people. Since another WasteWalk issue that came up was whether people's jobs kept them in the virtual world at their desktops or whether they worked in a physical space with a visible process. And that's kind of what you're talking about in some ways, when you say most of your work is in the transactional space. So we put a new poll to you guys, and that is, what is the nature of your process? And your options are: 1, it's largely online or digital, and 2, it's a process that you can see, not just in cubicles. So go ahead, let us know about your process by posting a response on our website for this month's poll. And thanks again for contributing and letting us know about what happens in your world.
I'm Elizabeth Swan, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. We'd love your feedback. Please leave us a review on iTunes or our website, and don't forget to subscribe.
Up next, it's in the news. So Elizabeth, you're coming to visit me in San Diego, and we get to go to Chicago. 2 really nice places to go.
It's true. I'm totally jacked about this. The first one is the OpEx Leader Summit in San Diego, and that's from August 26th through August 28th. And our good friend Angela Miller, Program Manager for the Lean Six Sigma product offerings at UC San Diego Extension, will be joining us for that one. And Tracy, you attended a recent OpEx conference. What was that like?
So I was able to attend this exact conference last year in San Diego, and I really enjoyed it. It was big enough to meet lots of new people, but small enough not to feel overwhelmed with too many people. So it felt like you got to see, you recognized people from day 1 and day 2. It wasn't so massive that you felt like you were around strangers every single day. But most of the people that went and most of the people that spoke were OpEx leaders. And I really liked that. People that were really trying to share their stories, share their deployments, sharing their successes with other OpEx leaders. So I really liked that element of it. I mean, obviously it's a leader summit, but it truly were the leaders coming in, and listening to them talk, I thought was great. And interacting and creating this type of forum, I think, is very valuable for leaders. So if you're an OpEx leader and you were looking for some inspiration, some networking, some ideas, you want to resolve some of your issues or problems you're having with deployment, you should come to this.
Yeah. And then for those of you not in the know, OpEx is short for operational excellence. We get so used to our own little acronyms, we often just sort of glide right by them. In fact, the other one, the November 3rd to the 8th, is the AME conference in Chicago, and that stands for the Association of Manufacturing Excellence. So more excellence there. And that one, Richard Sheridan, our favorite joy guru, is a keynote speaker. It'll be great to reconnect with him. He's unbelievably uplifting as a speaker. Another keynote is Tom Peters. He's a quality legend. He wrote In Search of Excellence and 16 other books about, his management consulting wisdom. I love this quote. Well, first of all, he's known as an anti-greed icon, which is a great thing to be known as. And Inc. magazine called him the Red Bull of management, which is like, that's great. I love that. He's been around for decades to still be considered the Red Bull of management. Says he's got lots of power, which is great. So those two alone make this a fall highlight. I'm really excited for that. So Tracy, you went to the AME conference recently, so give us some highlights about that one.
Yes, so I went to the AME conference. It was in San Diego last year. I was very impressed with the event. I was so impressed with the keynotes that AME was able to secure that I wrote a blog specifically about the keynote speakers from last year. They were very high quality. And, Elizabeth, we go to a lot of conferences. We do a lot of speaking engagements ourselves. We do training. So I'd say that we have a higher bar when it comes to keynotes and speakers in general. And I was so impressed with all of these speakers. So I guess that's a good thing, is that I have a really high expectation for the AME conference this year in Chicago, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. That was a great blog. So I am so jacked for this one. Also to go to Chicago, because I like Chicago.
Mm-hmm. I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. In a short while, we'll get to hear Elizabeth's interview with Mohammed Saleh and Heather Pershala. Next up, it's a question from one of our listeners.
So, Tracy, this question came up because if a process is virtual, you have to redefine what it means to see the process, right?
Yes, it's an important consideration. The recent WasteWalk webinar brought this up, so it's worth talking about. The question from a forum member was, how would you conduct a WasteWalk in a completely virtual environment? So first, let's define what a WasteWalk is. What is a WasteWalk, Elizabeth?
A WasteWalk is an observational exercise. You're taking your 8 waste check sheet and you are walking either a physical space, a supply closet, something like that, and looking to see which of the 8 wastes you find, or you're walking through a physical process. You're looking to see how things are done. And again, you're looking for representatives of the 8 wastes and documenting on your check sheet. So that's the definition.
Wonderful. And so how would you do that in a completely virtual environment was the question for our forums. So here's some ideas. So when we say virtual, there's a couple of considerations. One of them is you have a virtual team working in a process. So how do you make that more visual or visible with the process? And there's things to consider. So for example, Elizabeth is in Cape Cod, I'm in San Diego, we have people in Hawaii, and we're working on creating kits that we're sending out, and it's done in Hawaii. So a great way for us to see what's happening with the process is to actually have them use a GoPro or an iPhone to record some of the pieces that they're doing. Or we could actually just call into WebEx on a video, and we can actually watch and see what's happening with the process. So these are all things you could do to make that process more visual and visible when you have a virtual team.
Yeah. And if the process is truly online and invisible, then you should consider graduating from a waste walk to a process walk, also known as a Gemba walk. And I'll define that. That is a series of informational interviews. So whereas the waste walk is silent observation, a Gemba walk has a different interview sheet, and you take members of a process and you walk the process and you stop and interview a member of the process. Obviously, this isn't a surprise. You plan this ahead of time so they know you're coming. And you interview them about and watch them use the screen, use the applications, and make the process visible to you by you looking at it. And you could also do that virtually, as Tracy was saying, with screen sharing. But you still need to do something that was a part of an interview process. And then that person who's been interviewed now joins the group and goes to the next step in the process. And by doing this, you uncover issues, process issues. You can get data about how long it takes to do things. So it's really more in depth to get a better understanding and build your knowledge of the process. So it may be that you have to use a process walk instead of a waste walk. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I love that. And I'd say the biggest challenge with the process walks is often people think because it's a virtual or invisible process and it's in cubicles, well, we don't have to go to Gemba. We don't have to walk the process. You still got to be the thing. You still have to be the thing. And you should, if at all possible, try to get a feel for where those steps are happening. And I think that's the biggest mistake people make is they tend to still sit in conference rooms and talk about the process as opposed to being the thing going through the process.
Right. That's great. And for those of you wondering, what you talking about the thing? Could be an application, could be an order, or it could be a product. But what is the thing flowing through the process is always where to start and what to track. It's time to announce the coupon code, Tracy.
This code is for 20% off any of our Lean Six Sigma training and certification courses, white, yellow, green, black belt, or lean training.
If you've joined us at the Just in Time Cafe, just use coupon code 20MINT. That's 20MINT during checkout. Make sure to use it soon since the coupon will expire on the 15th of May.
Coming up next is today's special. Elizabeth, give us a little preview of your interview with Mohammed and Heather.
Mohammed is the executive director of the Lean office at Hartford Healthcare, and he's also senior sensei. And Heather is a Lean sensei, but she's also being mentored by Mohammed. And we've never had two people discuss their mentoring relationship together before. So these two share how great it is, but also how tough it is, for both of them at times. How hard it is not to tell the person you're mentoring how to solve a problem when you know the answer and you could help them, right? But that doesn't help them in the long run. So stay tuned for a great interview.
I think this is definitely something that leaders could really get value from.
Absolutely.
I am honored to welcome Mohammed Saleh and Heather Pirshala to today's special. Mohammed is the executive director of the Lean office and senior sensei at Hartford Healthcare. And Heather is a Lean sensei at Hartford Healthcare, which is based in Connecticut. Welcome back, Mohammed, and welcome to the cafe, Heather.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mohammed is a longtime Lean practitioner, professor, and mentor. He's also a recent guest of the show. Heather has been at Hartford Healthcare for 7 years and recently posted an expert excerpt on our site. Thank you, Heather. I met Mohammed and Heather last year at the Lean Frontiers Leadership Week in Jekyll Island, Georgia, and I got to hear Mohammed present, and I met Heather when she facilitated a Lean coffee breakout, and I was intrigued by both of them, and it wasn't until the next day that I realized they work together. They've been part of the amazing Lean transformation that has been going on at Hartford Healthcare, so we've been connecting ever since. And this is the first time that we've had both a mentor and a mentee here at the cafe, which is pretty exciting. And I know our listeners are going to be intensely interested in what you two have to say. So I'd love to start with some basics. Are you game?
Bring it on.
Bring it on. This will be fun.
So let's start with, what does a typical coaching session look like? Do you center around an A3? Is it just feedback? Do you focus on struggles? What's the format? Paint a picture for me.
That's a very deep question there, Elizabeth. I'm gonna start with it depends on what you're starting with. So if we're just talking about current state, there's multiple things that when I meet with Heather, I'm kind of intrigued about, and I want to make sure that we dive deeper into those kind of conversations. There's always a conversation around things that we talked about in our last coaching session and how it went and what we could actually, what she learned from it. There's conversations that usually focus on certain capabilities that she has or that she's working on. And if there's books to read, which there always is, if there's certain networks that she has to be connected to, there's always that conversation. But it's we always view it from a few different lenses. We always talk about her performance in general and how she's progressing in her career and capabilities. And then the other area that we talk about is her potential. And there's a rigorous process that we use that really identifies both her performance and potential. And it always opens up the conversation around her technical savviness, how she is with respect to her social skills, her navigational skills, her political skills and political awareness. And that often leads to actionable items that we wrap up as next steps between this time and the next time we meet. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, Heather?
Well, I will say Mohammed is an excellent coach, to the point where it's sometimes frustrating because there are challenges that I come across, and oftentimes I just want to leverage his expertise. I know he's been down this road. I know he's experienced this at many different levels, and I just want to kind of soak that up like a sponge and be like, tell me what to do. And he never gives in. No matter how much I try to pry answers out of him, he's really he's very trusting, and I do trust his leadership, but he'll say that goes both ways, but sometimes I don't feel totally confident that should go both ways, but he never gives in. He really has a very strong coaching mindset and helps me learn how to get there. He's very set on building that learning, and through that personal growth and reflecting and building some self-awareness. And learning from our failures, right? It's not always about getting the right answer. It's about learning and trying new things and failing fast and reflecting and moving forward. So I would say, wow, that's sometimes frustrating because I just want to get there. He's supportive in the process, so I trust it, and we do get there eventually.
Well, thank you for pointing out, I think, one of the pivotal pieces of this relationship. And just like you're feeling the frustration of, just give me the answer, man, you've been around for so long, you know it. But on the other side, as someone who's coached, I know it is also frustrating to not feel like I should give an answer, knowing that I could. That's, I mean, Mohammed sounds a little more mature than me, but I find it often difficult, to hold that back. Do you find that difficult to hold back the answer, Mohammed?
Yes. I think the process for me is not the result of the action being taken, but more the result of the growth the individual's going through. So with that in mind, giving the answer is actually hurting the individual. So that has kind of helped me position my open-ended questions that they're not leading to an answer, but really giving her the space to explore certain options in different scenarios. And I know this is hard sometimes to believe, but I find more joy when she fails and learns from something than when she actually succeeds.
How about you, Heather? Does that resonate with you, or are you thinking, I am not fond of the failure?
The face I just gave him. They're tough lessons. I will say that Mohammed's probably the toughest mentor that I've ever had throughout my career. And there have been many painful failures along the way, but it's because Mohammed let me fail and didn't jump in. He jumps into the rescue, but in a more subtle way. He's there, he has your back, and I trust that and I know that. But with any growth that you go through, I think growing pains are part of that. And so while the failure is a part of it, I do feel supported, and I wince sometimes when I look back at things, but I also, remember all the times that I've said really stupid things or done really stupid things, and Mohammed was there to kind of paint a good picture, put it in a good light, and help minimize the damage, I might say. But that's how you truly learn, and I don't do that again. I don't repeat the same mistake because I felt it, So it's good to have that relationship where you can trust somebody, but also, have the space to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, I think trust is probably a huge piece of this picture. And it feels like one of the things you're saying resonates kind of on a research level. Like all the research says the things you learn are the things you failed at. Those are the biggest, that really they're seared in your brain that, you'd never forget those things. And when people get frustrated with not getting things right on an exam and they have to take it again, it's like, yeah, but those are the things you're going to learn. Mm-hmm. So the other thing I'm hearing on Mohammed's side is kind of three things that stick out to me. One is that you have to practice not giving an answer, right? Because your instinct is, we want to help people. If I know something, I should help you with that. The second thing is that taking that step back and thinking, well, this is about Heather's growth. So that means you have to always have that big picture present so that you're not sacrificing the growth of someone you're mentoring for a short term, well, if I answer this now, we can fix it today. And the third is that willingness to let a person fail. And that involves a lot of trust, I think, in many levels, like faith in that. It's your faith in Heather. Like Heather has to trust you, that things will be okay. You have to have faith in her that things are going to be okay. So those are big. And I think this is all, like you said, it's very rich. There's a lot here, whereas you two have a partnership and you have a history now and you have gone through a lot of this. But this is probably wasn't immediately clear, at least to you, Heather, I'm guessing.
No, it was a very different style of coaching than what I was used to from my previous line of work. So there have definitely been moments of deep learning, but also I learned by example too. It's not just through coaching, right? Like I've seen Mohammed put himself out there. I've seen him work through this lean transformation at Hartford Healthcare, and he's an ironclad. Like he does not back down when any barriers get in his way or any kind of tough decisions need to be had. I mean, he's courageous and he has the ambition and tenacity to move forward. And so seeing that level of confidence and that ability to, kind of trust his team and trust those around him really built his organizational credibility. And it's served as a model. So beyond coaching too, just watching his example has been helpful to digest some of those tough lessons.
That's nice. Mohammed, what do you do when things are not going as you'd hoped with someone you're coaching, whether it's Heather or somebody else? How do you handle that as a mentor?
Not well. I think I get more concerned when someone fails at something or thinks something is not working out and they're not really paying attention to what they're learning from the experience. So a lot of my questions would then fall back on the learning part. The other piece is the level of damage it causes, because we always have to ensure that the customer is not impacted or the timelines that are being set forth are not impacted. And so a lot of times I would accelerate certain learning objectives. It could be by shadowing others. It could be by shadowing me and observing me in a situation and giving me feedback on what they observed and what they learned. I always ask after any time I've worked with an individual on my team or someone that I've been mentoring, what did you learn from today? And it's a question that I think my team has come to just expect at this point, because you're not in this to just support. You're in this because you need to lead as well. And so I would say that a deeper dive into this, looking at analytical skills and where their capabilities are. I try to break up the opportunity I'm observing for to what is the root cause? What is the capability that's missing here? Is it knowledge? Is it analytical skills? Is it just their appetite for certain things? So it really comes down to understanding the person's strengths, leveraging those strengths, and as you discover some weaknesses, to be able to work that in a more aggressive way.
So that was a nice example. So one of the ways to help someone get better at a skill and beef up where they need help is shadowing, whether it's you or somebody else. And that's a nice visual. And out of curiosity, do you generally coach face-to-face? Are phone calls okay? Like, what's the preferred and what's the most common?
I'm not a big fan of phone calls. I've actually canceled my coaching sessions with people if they couldn't be in person. However, there's sometimes exceptions to that, where sometimes there is a coaching session that's needed, and just due to different logistical challenges, we have to do it over the phone. But I would say 90% of the time it's face-to-face. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you always make yourself available for any questions over the phone, but to actually sit down in person and just kind of be in the moment, you get pulled in a million directions, and it's easy when you're on the phone to kind of look at your email or somebody. Like, I have kids, right? My kids will pop up in the room. It's nice to just get in a room, shut the door, and just focus on whatever you really need to focus on. So I have a great face-to-face is pretty much your go-to.
Well, that's nice. It's nice you're able to do it. I know sometimes it's not as possible, and people will use video or try different methods because I think the phone call is the sort of least impact. Heather, if you think about kind of aha moments through having been coached, is there one or two that stick out in your mind? Like an example of things like, oh man, like how you came to understand something?
Yeah, so one of the things that used to really frustrate me was I'd be working on a project, or I'd be familiar with for a certain initiative, or I would have some background, and Mohammed would ask me on the spot, like, okay, so you're going to present on this in like 15 minutes? And my initial reaction would be like, what? 15 minutes? I haven't had any time to prep or pull together, and I don't know precisely what I'm going to say. And it would, just put me on the spot and cause me a lot of anxiety, right? And so at first, this used to really frustrate me. But then I learned that it built this skill set in me that I was able to think on the fly. I really should be more confident in my knowledge of what I'm presenting, because it's there, and it doesn't necessarily mean I need hours of preparation to just kind of trust what you know and trust the work that you've done and trust yourself and build your confidence in that aspect. And so now, as I've progressed through different roles within the organization, I realize that I need that skill set more than ever, because things don't go as planned. You get thrown curveballs all the time, and you need that ability to be able to take what you know and read the room and adjust to it and own it. So I found that while in the beginning, that caused many moments where I was deeply frustrated. Now I am so thankful for that skill set.
Interesting. Mohammed, you didn't do that on purpose, did you?
Of course not.
Causing poor Heather anxiety. That reminds me of what they do with pilots. They have to, when they train them, they'll simulate a stall, because that's not something that normally happens. And when it does, if you're in a plane, you could freak out, like, how do I deal with this? It's something I'm not used to. So you're practicing things that cause you anxiety. You're practicing what could hit. Like you said, Heather, these things come out of the blue. You have to be ready to deal with them.
Yeah, and it was very strategic. It wasn't like he knew that I had been involved with these initiatives, or that I had a strong background, or even was a lead on some of these things. So it wasn't solely to produce anxiety, though I do probably think you guys enjoyed out of that watching me. So it was strategic. Like, again, back to the trust thing. I knew that I had a security blanket there, and didn't feel it at the time, but it helped. It definitely it helped grow me, and I knew he had my back, so it was a good lesson. Well, those instances.
He's just a little bit evil, not a lot.
Not a lot.
Hey, I'm known to have the angel emoji, so.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have to get one story that's really
Okay.
short. One of a situation that there was a senior leader, a new organization that we were looking into, and as we collaborated with these departments and senior leaders, we were really challenged with how this is going, and I noticed that Heather was making a lot of headway there, and I was having a cup of coffee with Mark DeLuzio. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's iconic in the lean field. And Heather was with us, and we just, this was a Friday, and there was a huge retreat on Monday, and we just decided that she already has everything that it takes to run these kind of strategic retreats. So from that day forward, I was like, all right, so on Monday you'll be doing this. And it was probably one of the best outcome retreats I've seen in a very long time. So it's all in there. It has to be given the space to come out.
That's nice. One thing that Karen Ross, who's a colleague and friend of all of ours, she has an expression: you borrow confidence from your coach. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. Plenty of confidence to go around.
So either one of you, what do you consider the top challenges of a mentoring relationship?
It's important for the mentee that you have, and Heather has these in flying colors. So I think that's what makes the relationship work. But if she didn't, this would be a huge challenge. And I think it's the person you're mentoring and the person that's being mentored has to have a lot of integrity and has to know that they're doing it for the individual. So that would mean that they would have to be extremely caring. So you can't really be a mentor if you're going to check a box that you're mentoring. You really have to do this because deep down inside, you see the potential of this individual, and you're driving that performance while you're increasing that potential, and you're able to extrapolate the strengths within that person and also create an environment of vulnerability where the weaknesses also surface. This comes down to also the level of loyalty that you have for that individual, and making sure that you don't leave them out to dry when something goes wrong, and to know that you own any outcome or any failure that they do because you're giving them the space to fail. So you have to always be on alert. I've seen mentors succeed. I've seen mentors fail, and it came down to the mentee and how hungry they are in this process. So someone like Heather, what's the frequency of books that you get?
Sometimes one a week.
So when you give someone who's hungry a book every week to read, summarize, and be able to present on, that's an aggressive timeline. So at the end of the year, you might have read 30 to 40 books. And that doesn't excuse the Gemba and what you have to do and how dirty you have to get your hands on the actual workplace and the experience that comes with that. But I think that's having that hunger and ambition and drive and appetite to really want to do this. I think if you don't have it, it won't work. There's a lot of people that would come up to you and say, hey, do you want to mentor me? Or I mentor this person. And when you get deep down in the conversation, if this is your direct reports that you're talking about, or if this is someone outside of your chain of command that you're interested in, if they're not hungry, it just won't work. They also have to have a level of change agility to be able to maneuver through these waters, and a level of moldability and willingness to actually change. There's people that ask you for feedback, but they don't actually want feedback, but it feels good for them to ask you for it so they could understand how you're thinking, but they're not actually willing to change based on that feedback. So I think that would be a make or break to this. And something I think is unique to Heather, and I don't see it often, is Heather goes way beyond the job description. She'll look at things that she's supposed to do, say as a sensei, and think about like what more could she do, and go way beyond that job description. And then when she gets it, yeah, there's a moment of panic maybe, but she figures it out and she tries, and then she comes to me, and that creates that level of urgency to always want to learn more, because you put yourself in situations that are out there, and so I think that's an important one. And definitely, if you're working with someone, if they're not a critical thinker or personable or a team player, that becomes a challenge as well. So I think these would be what I would say are, good things, good ingredients to possess if you're a mentee, because I think it would allow you to really leverage the mentor to a whole new level.
Yeah, of the description you've given me, the being hungry really stands out. I feel like that's a gateway, and a lot of the others, it's like those are important, but without that hunger, it kind of doesn't matter. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Heather.
So how about you, Heather, looking from your perspective?
You have to be hungry to be a mentee of Mohammed's, because it's like a 24-hour buffet or something. There's always something new to go see and go do. And I would say like that's probably one of my biggest challenges. It's a good challenge. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for it. But Mohammed's extremely knowledgeable. He's a very quick thinker. He's very resourceful, and he's very innovative. So if he has an idea, and he doesn't have what he needs to do it, it doesn't matter. Like, we're doing it. We're figuring out a way. And so to keep up with him, I think, Elizabeth, I think you called him a powerhouse in your last podcast with him. And like, that's what he is. That term definitely resonated with me. I was like, yes, that's Mohammed. And just trying to keep up with the next opportunity, the next new initiative that we're embarking on, the next new challenge. It's a lot. It's a lot of work to put into, but it's extremely rewarding. I'm extremely thankful for it. But I would say it's challenging in itself, but it's worth it at the end of the day.
I used this phrase with Karen Ross too. I said, you know what, Karen, you are kind but demanding. And I think that's a sign of a really good coach. It sounds like, you as well, Mohammed, are kind but demanding.
I would definitely say that's Mohammed. He's very demanding, and it might not be apparent at first, but he's actually very patient and very caring. And especially I guess patience too, but especially the caring sticks out for me, because you have such like a high level of integrity. Like, you always want to do the right thing, no matter what the situation is, the politics around it, the barriers, the lack of resources. There's always the right thing to do at the end of the day. And Mohammed cares about that. He cares about creating win-win situations for people. He cares about the growth. He cares about making sure that the patient or the customer is first and getting those results to move our organization forward. And so just seeing that level of caring in everything you do, woven and out, is it's really a good model, and definitely patience for when sometimes things get in the way, but you're always demanding but patient.
That's nice. That's a great description, Heather.
If you happen to be mentoring someone, Elizabeth, that reports to you, I've had the opportunity, Heather, as a student in the master's program at Central Connecticut State University. So I've experienced her many years ago as a student, and our mentorship started then. There is a difference between when you're mentoring someone that that you could be completely, open with, that is not really working for you. And I think for any leader that actually has direct reports that they're mentoring in this process, there's a different thing that really speaks to your values. And one of our presidents, who's been a longstanding mentor of mine, Donna Handley, around 8 years ago, she said, when you're mentoring someone that reports to you, your job is to get them to have your job. And the longer that takes, that's just waste. That's weight. And you need to reflect on your activities because you're causing that to wait. Now, I didn't maybe understand or appreciate it at that time, but I definitely appreciate it now when your direct reports that you're mentoring rise to the level of your position. It forces you to grow as well, and I think that's critical because that pressure is bidirectional. When you're mentoring someone that's not in the direct line, I think the intensity of that to grow you might be not as much, but I think you also maybe don't understand or appreciate that reality, so you give them a lot more work to do. So I think Heather's in a really good position where she gets it from both angles. She gets it as a student, and she also gets it as a direct report. So I think there's a level of intensity that comes from being a student that just never stopped, and there's a level of urgency of wanting that person to grow into the next phase of their career. So I think it's a great kind of position to be in.
I would concur. It feels like you've both gotten yourselves into great positions, and I feel like, Mohammed, you've been lucky in the mentors you've had. Clearly, Heather, you're lucky in the mentor you've got.
She's very lucky.
But yeah, she's feeling the luck right now. But I also want to acknowledge that there's luck has nothing to do with your hard work, your integrity, your hunger for things to be better. Like, this is not all luck. So I want to acknowledge that. And I know our listeners are taking this in and going, oh my God, if I could be in a situation like that. It's a great situation. And I just want to thank you both for sharing what makes it great. Because I think a lot of those things people can hear and internalize, even if they don't have, the most awesome coach they could have. They know what it looks like, or they hear what it looks like, and they can embody some of that if they get in the position, and they can look for someone to help them if they were looking for a coach. So let me ask you both. I'm sorry we've run out of time because it's just an awesome conversation. It's great listening to both of you. But how can someone find you guys or communicate with you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I'm always willing to answer any questions. So if you go on LinkedIn and look for Mohammed Saleh, Saleh, you can just message me through that. I think that would be the easiest way to connect with me. Awesome.
Heather?
Yep, and I would say the same, very active on LinkedIn. So if you went on LinkedIn and looked for Heather Pierzchala, that's Pierzchala. I would, look forward to any messages that come through that site as well.
That's lovely of you both to make yourselves accessible. You've been listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. My guests today have been Mohammed Saleh, the Executive Director of the Lean Office and Senior Sensei, and Heather Pierzchala, Lean Sensei, both from Hartford Healthcare. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with our listeners today, Heather and Mohammed.
Have a good one, Elizabeth, and thank you for everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elizabeth. It was a pleasure.
So join us on April 18th at 11 a.m. Pacific for my latest webinar, The Joy of Tidying Up with Lean Six Sigma. So if you've seen the show Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, we're expressing how there's lean tools that she's using in that show. And I love making the connection between her show and a tool that is a very simple tool that we've used in Lean a lot, 5S. Also check out the latest post in our expert excerpt series featuring Heather Bartow, the Senior Process Improvement and Human Services Administrator, on what it takes to succeed with Lean Six Sigma in New Hampshire state government.
Nice try.
Okay, New Hampshire state government. Great insights about working with people. And check out another great post by our colleague Ernie Arbolis about the untapped advantages of process mining.
And join us next week when I interview Jeff Toyster, a customer service thought leader and recent author who knows the customer may not always be right, but they are powerful.
Thanks for bringing the Just in Time Cafe along on your commute.
See you in 2 weeks.